The first reading sounds like a pretty messed up story because you have God telling Abraham to offer his only son. He also has Ishmael, but this is the son of his wife Sarah. And again, it sounds like this very messed up story. He's kind of like putting this burden on his son. But at the same time, Isaac is a willing sacrifice. They've cut out some of the pieces to make the story shorter here. But Isaac is the one who's carrying the wood on his back. And don't forget the fact that Abraham's well over 100 years old by this time. And whenever Isaac is put on this fire, he is bound. So that means that at some point, Abraham had to tie his hands and feet together. Isaac carried the wood. He's this strong young guy. He could have easily ran away from his father and said, why are you putting me on a pile of wood and tying my hands and feet? And why do you have that knife and fire? He does ask that too. Again, that's cut out of the reading from today. Both of them are willing to hand over something very important. One of the things revealed in this story is that God does not actually like and want human sacrifice, like killing of other human beings. But the other thing that I think is revealed is that God really does want everything. God says in this reading, "Take your son Isaac, your only one whom you love." To say it another way, give me your heart. Give me everything. God promised to Abraham that he would make a great nation out of him, and Isaac is clearly the promise of that, the realization of that promise. And it's from Isaac that all the tribes are born, and there's all of this, the Israelite people and all of the rest of that. But how could you conceive in your mind that God had promised something to you and then was taking away the very means by which you thought he was going to fulfill that promise? But God is asking from Abraham and from Isaac everything. And I don't think he has stopped asking from us everything. The experience that the disciples had there on the mountain, Peter is overwhelmed. He's so terrified, but he wants to stay there. So he says, let's build 3 tents. Let's just remain in this place. And maybe the same thing happens to you in prayer sometimes. You've come to prayer, you've come to Mass, you've come to some moment, and you just want to stay in that place because it feels so comforting, it feels so good, and yet we always have to leave. We can't just hold on to that one moment forever. Maybe you're in a place right now where your prayer life is not where you want it to be. Like maybe several years ago, you were just in this place where everything clicked, where your relationship with God was so on fire, and now you're just wishing you could go back there and wondering what's going on. I'd say in those moments too, God is saying, I want everything from you. Whether it's because you've been promised these physical things, like in Abraham's case, his son, or these spiritual things it feels like you've been promised, this peace or joy or whatever you used to get or are getting in prayer, what's going to happen if God asks you for that back? Will you continue to follow him? When it feels like he's asking for everything, because he will, if you're really serious about this Christian life, he does want it all. He wants everything about you. Are you going to say yes? That even though prayer will become hard sometimes and dry and empty, will you still show up? Will you still strive to seek after the Lord's heart? Maybe that does mean changing up your prayer routine or your prayer style, and that's fine. But will you keep showing up? Because the Lord wants everything. Is there something that you're sensing in your life that's holding you back from making a total commitment to the Lord? Is there some vice or just some attachment to something that you know is holding you back, and it's so hard to let go? But the Lord doesn't want just most of you. He wants it all. Are you willing to give him everything?